Hello, my name is Janice Thomas. I'm the district engineer for the Sonoma district in Santa Rosa, California. I put together this slideshow to help small water systems get a background on Stage 2 Disinfection Byproduct Rule, have enough information to be able to complete their Stage 2 monitoring plan. This slideshow is specifically for Schedule 4 systems. A Schedule 4 system is one that serves less than 10,000 people and is not connected to a larger system. Compliance for Schedule 4 systems starts October 1st, 2013. You may be wondering, why do you need to redo your plan? Wasn't the Stage 1 plan good enough? So under Stage 2, some of the monitoring frequencies have changed, and that will be reflected on your plan: increase, routine, reduced. We also improved the plan so that it has reminders of what would move your water system monitoring from, say, routine to increased or to reduced, and what kind of results you would need to be able to stay on reduced monitoring. There's a concept called an operational evaluation level that is explained in the plan and is noted when your water system would have to do this operational evaluation level. Also, compliance is now based on a locational running annual average, because under Stage 1, compliance was based on a system-wide running annual average. And now compliance is based on the running annual average at each of the sampling locations. This next slide gives you a list of the acronyms, so you can refer back to this slide in case there is an acronym I use that I do not define. Let's go back to the basics. What is the purpose of the Disinfectants Disinfection Byproduct Rule? Disinfectants are used to kill disease-causing organisms, so we need to have disinfectants in the water. But in excess levels, disinfectants can cause negative health effects. Also, disinfectants react with natural organic matter and create byproducts. Those byproducts have been shown to cause cancer and adverse reproductive or developmental effects. So there's a balance between having enough disinfectant in the water to kill anything that will get people sick, but to not have the levels so high that you're harming your customer base. To which systems does the Disinfection Byproduct Rule apply? Community and non-transient water systems. So community are the type of systems that you think about, mobile home parks or small communities where people live year-round. A non-transient water system is one where you may have a school where you would have at least 25 kids or staff who are in contact with the water over a 6-month period, or large places of employment that have 25 or more employees. Now, those systems also have to disinfect their water, either with chlorine, chloramine, chlorine dioxide. If the water system only uses UV, ultraviolet radiation, this rule does not apply. Also, transient water systems like restaurants or gas stations have to comply if they use chlorine dioxide as a disinfectant. Things that carry over from Stage 1. The maximum contaminant levels for total trihalomethanes, haloacetic acids, bromate, and chlorite are all at the levels that they were under Stage 1. And moving forward, even though the regulations have, especially the TTHM, HA5, and bromate in milligrams per liter, I will be converting that to micrograms per liter using 80, 60, and 10 micrograms per liter. Other things that carry forward from stage 1 are the maximum residual disinfectants level, where chlorine would have to have a running annual average based on monthly averages over 4 to be in violation. This is a very high level. As you know, if you were running a chlorine residual anywhere near 4, your customer base would be complaining well before you could maintain a residual over 4 for an entire year. Nonetheless, chloramines has an MRDL of 4, chlorine dioxide of 0.8. Total organic carbon still needs to be monitored for surface water systems. Things that are new in stage 2. Monitoring is now based on the population and the water source type. It used to be based on the water source type and the number of treatment plants. So now it's a bit simplified, just based on the population and the water source type. As I mentioned before, compliance is based on the locational running annual average. There are also compliance schedules. There's a schedule 1, 2, 3, and 4, whereas you saw from an earlier slide that schedule 4 is for the smallest water systems that serve less than 10,000. There is a concept called a combined distribution system, and that was meant for all of the water systems that were connected in a combined distribution system to sample at the same time and to solve any problems related to the disinfection byproducts that arose through the sampling. And they could do that all together, as opposed to a couple of water systems making a change and then another one making a change that creates a problem for another system. And it could be a never-ending cycle of adjustments trying to solve any disinfection byproducts problems. There was a concept called an IDSE, which is an initial distribution system evaluation. It was an early step in stage 2. For water systems, it was the community water systems and the very large non-transients that had to do this. And it was a way to assess the distribution system, make sure that they are sampling for any location that is not being sampled under stage 1 and could produce high TTHMs or high HA5s. Most of the systems that have populations less than 10,000 were granted a very small system waiver if they had a population less than 500, or a 40/30 certification. The 40/30 certification was granted if a water system had 2 years of results that were less than 40 TTHM and less than 30 HA5s. So for most systems, that compliance was completed seamlessly, yet sampling under stage 2 will need to start beginning October of 2013. As I've mentioned, the monitoring frequencies have changed: routine, reduced, increased. I've also mentioned this operational evaluation level, which I'll go into more detail in a few slides. Bromate monitoring can be reduced through a new formula, and that's also explained on the monitoring plans. There are some new requirements for the Consumer Confidence Report in how results are reported. I'm not going to go into detail on those changes in this talk, but I do give a reference to our CCR website that has templates, and as long as you're using the most up-to-date template, you will capture all of the requirements that need to be covered in the Consumer Confidence Report. This slide shows a graphical representation of the difference between stage 1 and stage 2, where under stage 1, if a system is collecting 2 quarterly samples, it can average those quarterly samples each quarter, sum all of those results, divide by 4, and that is the system-wide running annual average. If, say, the purple house had high TTHM results and the greenhouse had low TTHM results, it would be a way for the system to average those out and comply with the maximum contaminant level for TTHM. But now under stage 2, the results at, say, the purple house would be averaged, and that result would be compared with the MCL. Similarly with the greenhouse. If the MCL is exceeded at either of these locations, the entire water system is out of compliance. Also, if any of the results from any of the sampling exceeds either of the MCLs, then sampling at both sample locations will be increased to the increased frequency, which is generally quarterly. This slide is showing the difference between taking dual samples and taking 2 duals and taking 2 samples. You'll see that as a choice in the upcoming slides for sampling frequencies. If your system is taking 2 dual samples, it's very similar to what you're doing under stage 1, where at one house you're taking both TTHM and HA5 results, and at the other house you're also taking TTHMs and HA5s. If your system is taking 2 samples, a TTHM sample is taken at one location and the HA5 is taken at a different location. What this will look like on the monitoring tables, it will say 2 samples or 1 dual. And the difference is between taking a TTHM sample at one house and HA5 at another house, or taking 1 dual, which is a TTHM and an HA5 at one location. So one thing to keep in mind is that if your water system has to go to increased monitoring, generally the frequency will go to quarterly and dual samples will need to be taken. This table shows the routine sampling frequencies, first based on the water type, surface water, groundwater under the influence, or groundwater, the population size, and then it will give the sample number and the frequency. So for a groundwater that has between 500 and 9,999, 2 dual samples per year is required. For a small, very small groundwater system with less than 500 population, that system will have the choice between 2 samples or 1 dual per year. We are advising systems, if it makes sense, to take the 1 dual per year because it will make the sampling simpler and it would reduce the chance that the TTHM sample gets taken at the HA5 site and vice versa, which would lead to a monitoring and reporting violation. But keep in mind, if your water system has some compelling reasons to split those samples, to please do that. Down at the bottom has a note that your water system can return to routine sampling from increased if the TTHM, locational running annual average, does not exceed 60 and the locational running annual average of the HA5 results does not exceed 45. Reduce sampling. Again, surface water, groundwater under the influence, and groundwater, then the population type, the number of samples, and the frequency. And you'll see more of the 2 samples or 1 dual. Another thing to keep in mind is if your water system has only been collecting 1 sample under stage 1, it will likely make the most sense to continue taking a dual sample. For your water system to be on reduced sampling, the locational running annual average cannot exceed 40 micrograms per liter TTHM and cannot exceed 30 micrograms per liter of HA5, and no sample can exceed 60 micrograms per liter of TTHM and cannot exceed 45 micrograms per liter of HA5. For a surface water system, the same is true, except the TOC's annual average cannot exceed 4 milligrams per liter. Increased monitoring table. Again, surface water, groundwater are under the influence, groundwater, population, and the sample numbers, the frequency. Your water system will be moved into increased monitoring if any sample exceeds 80 micrograms per liter of TTHM or 60 micrograms per liter of HA5. You may be wondering, can my water system stay on reduced? We've been on reduced for a long time. Yes, your water system can if the TTHM, locational running annual averages, do not exceed 40 micrograms per liter and the HA5 locational running annual averages do not exceed 30. The source water, if you're a surface water system, does not exceed 4 milligrams per liter TOC, and your sample sites don't change. As I've mentioned, we would like, as much as possible, to simplify the monitoring and have systems collect dual samples. If you're required to collect equal number of samples, that will be pretty simple to determine which sites to use from stage 1. If your water system is to collect fewer sites than under stage 1, that you would alternate between your highest TTHM site and your highest HA5 sites. If your water system has to collect more, then please contact our office. We have some guidance on that, but for most systems this will not apply. When to sample. Something to keep in mind is a historical high month. Look back on your historical data and identify the month that has the highest TTHM and the highest HA5 concentrations. If your water system has only been sampling in September, this will be a pretty easy determination. So make a note of that on the form, and I'll be going over how to fill out the form in a few slides. But you need to note that when you're reviewing your data. When to start. For systems that will be on quarterly monitoring, they will need to start that first quarter. It'll be October, November, or December. A thing to keep in mind is capturing that historical high month. If your system will be on quarterly and you know that September was your historical high month, you would start sampling in December, then in March, then in June, so that you would capture September as you roll through the quarterly sampling regime. So you would put down first start sampling. If you were on quarterly, it would be December of 2013, and what that frequency would be, whether it's increased, routine, or reduced. If your water system is on annual or triennial, it will have 12 months to begin sampling. So that will start October 1st, 2013 till September 30th, 2014. So it will be October 1st, 2013 to September 30th, 2014. The promised OEL, Operational Evaluation Level. This first starts as a calculation for water systems that are on quarterly sampling that is routine or increased. Basically, for the small systems, if your water system is on quarterly, you will need to calculate this operational evaluation level starting that third quarter of the quarterly sampling. So this water system has collected 3 quarters and is ready to calculate the OEL. So it first takes the TTHM results from 2 quarters ago, puts that in as A, then takes the TTHM result for the previous quarter, puts that in as B, takes the TTHM result from the current quarter, multiplies by 2, well, puts it in as C, multiplies by 2, then adds all of this together, divides by 4. Then compares the result with the MCL. If it's greater than 80 micrograms per liter of TTHM, then it will trigger a comprehensive review of the operations. Similarly with the HA5, putting in 2 quarters ago, last quarter, the current quarter, multiply by 2, and add it all together, divide by 4. If that exceeds 60 micrograms per liter, then it will trigger the operational evaluation report. What the OEL does is it gives an early warning for a possible TTHM or HA5 maximum contaminant violation. It triggers a comprehensive review of the system's operation. What is helpful about this is that if the TTHM or HA5 results are increasing, you will see that in the calculation because it weights the most current quarter heavier. Possibly your water system can do some operational changes that will avoid a violation. Here's a graphical representation of taking quarterly samples. We just finished in May. So we take November of 2012 plus February of 2013 plus 2 times of the May result, divide by 4. Here are some numbers plugged into that calculation where we have 2 sample locations from October, January, and April, which resulted in an OEL at one of the sites but not at the other, but it still triggers an entire evaluation of the system. If an exceedance occurs, you will need to conduct an operational evaluation that includes the distribution system, the treatment, and source evaluations. If the cause is known, say if you can focus it on the reservoir turning over, then you can request from the state to limit your scope. It would have to be in writing, and you would have to receive the approval also in writing from the state. You would have 90 days to submit the report, and you can go to Wine Country Waterworks Association to download the forms. To get to the forms, you type in wcwwa.org. It'll take you to their home page. It'll do a little redirecting because their actual website address is longer than that, but it'll direct you to this site. Then you will click here where it says CDPH latest forms. Scroll down under Disinfection Byproducts, Stage 2, OEL forms. This first form will need to be filled out in any case, whether or not you were able to limit your scope. If you have to turn in all of the checklists, it would be all 4 of these forms would have to be submitted and any attachments. That could be up to 10 pages, but again, we would rather that a thorough evaluation of your water system is conducted and a MCL violation is avoided than to proceed and possibly have an MCL violation. You can also find forms for the plan, the Stage 2 Disinfection Byproduct Plan, the monitoring. The reporting form is also found on this page. Here is a screenshot of what that first form, the Operational Evaluation Reporting Form, looks like. How to report the results. As I had shown a couple of slides ago, under Stage 2, there's a Stage 2 DBP reporting form. Click on that and it will open up an Excel spreadsheet that has some macros, so you would have to allow macros to use the form. Under population, you would put your population, we'll say it's a surface water, less than 500. They're on routine sampling. Put the TTHM results here. So we'll go putting in our results. And it'll do the calculation if the OEL is required, if it's meeting standards. And the results are increasing here. Okay, so this last quarterly result did not trigger an MCL violation here, but it did trigger an OEL. So this water system would have to do a comprehensive review of its operations and submit a report, hopefully avoiding an MCL violation. On this other side is where the HA5 results are entered. Then you can print that and send it into our office. Here are the websites that I talked about. This is Wine Country Waterworks, their full website address, but the other wcwwa.org also works. Our CDPH, Consumer Confidence Report website. Also give a link to where the regulations are held if you want to download a copy of the regulations, the Stage 2 DBP Rule. This is the website to find that. EPA put together a compliance guide for small water systems. It's a good, well laid out guidance document. Also, if your water system has to do the OEL, there is a guidance manual for the operational evaluation. So, to complete your plan, things that you will need to download our form back on that Wine Country Waterworks website. It says Stage 2 Disinfectants, Disinfection Byproduct Monitoring Plan. You'll also need your TTHM and HA5 data, and going back as far as you have data for the distribution system. That's where you're looking at, are your distribution system results. Here's a sample of what a report might look like for DBP results. Has a water system number and name. Then the TTHM results are compiled for the one sample location. The results are organized in chronological order. Similarly for the haloacetic acids, for the one sample location, also in chronological order. If this water system had more than one sampling location, there would be a source and then a second source. But this is a pretty simple water system. So filling out the plan, putting in the water system name, this is ABC Mobile Home Park, the water system number 4905555, the schedule, all of these should be Schedule 4 systems. Then you would enter your population that you've been submitting in your annual reports, and what your water type is, whether it's a groundwater or a surface water. The next part of the plan is to fill out, as was mentioned earlier, that historical highest month for TTHM and HA5 concentration. For this system, it was very simple. It was in September at the clubhouse kitchen. First start sampling September 2014, and it will be on reduced sampling. If you remember, the system has 1 year. It's on reduced triennial sampling, so it has from October 1st, 2013 to September 30th, 2014 to collect that first sample. And it will start September of 2014. This information with the frequencies and how many samples are collected can be found on the back of the monitoring plan in tables that look like this. For a system that's a groundwater less than 500, it would take 1 dual per year. It doesn't have to do an OEL. It will take 1 dual every 3 years under reduced, and under increased it will take 1 dual every quarter, and the OEL will be required. And you'll see that on this form. So 1 dual per quarter plus OEL, 1 dual per year, 1 dual every 3 years. Attach a map of the distribution system with the sample location marked. Write down the sample location name. And this sample location is called dist_clubhouse kitchen. The code is the water system number dash the source number. So it's 4905555-006. This system does not use ozone. It checks the box there. Sign and date, and submit it to our office at 50D Street, room 200, Santa Rosa, California 95404. If you have any questions, please feel free to call our office, 707-576-2145. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation and for completing your Stage 2 plan.